Have you ever woken up in the dead of night feeling like you're not alone? Imagine this. It's 2:47 a.m. Sarah's eyes snap open, heart pounding, for no reason she can name. Then, at the edge of her vision, she sees it. A tall, dark shape in her bedroom doorway. Not a person, not a trick of the light, but something else. Something that seems to drink in the darkness itself. Sarah's story isn't as rare as you might think. All around the world, people are sharing their own chilling encounters with what are known as shadow people. And what makes it even stranger? Their descriptions almost always match up, even when these folks have never met or even heard of each other. Actually, I've had my own run-in with a shadow person. Don't worry, I'll tell you about that a bit later, so buckle up. Because after this video, you might never look at the shadows in your room the same way again. Shadow people aren't just another spooky story. There are patterns to these encounters, patterns that researchers have been puzzling over for decades. And by the time we're done, you'll have a whole new perspective on those shapes that flicker at the edge of your sight. Let's start at the beginning. What are shadow people exactly? Unlike the classic wispy ghosts in movies, shadow people are almost always described as solid, pitch-black silhouettes, like someone cut a person's shape out of the night. Most of the time you'll catch them at night or in dim light. People say they glimpse them darting out of the corner of their eye or standing stock still in a doorway, hallway, or corner of the room. What's really wild is how similar the stories are. Different backgrounds, languages, and beliefs, but always the same details. Almost everyone says shadow people look human-shaped, but without faces or clothes. It's just pure moving darkness. The most common things people report? Check this out. They look like dark, human-shaped figures. You usually see them out of the corner of your eye. They love to show up in doorways, hallways, or corners. They move with purpose, never just randomly drifting. They seem to watch people, almost like they're studying us. And here's the kicker. They tend to vanish if you stare straight at them. That kind of consistency is pretty hard to ignore. These aren't wild, all-over-the-place reports. People from all over are describing the same figures, down to the eerie details. But if you thought shadow people were strange, wait till you hear about one figure that stands out from the rest. The Hat Man. That's right, some people have spotted a shadowy figure. It's taller than the others, wearing what looks like a wide-brimmed hat or an old-fashioned fedora. He's been seen all over the world, often during sleep paralysis, or at especially spooky moments. The Hat Man is described as towering sometimes over 6 feet tall, with that signature hat casting a shadow over where his face should be. Reports of him really started popping up in the late 2000s, but here's what sends chills down my spine. People who'd never heard of the Hat Man before seeing him all describe him in the exact same way. The hat, the height, and most of all, a chilling sense of evil or dread. One woman from Colorado told her story. She woke up in the middle of the night to the Hat Man looming at the foot of her bed. He just stood there, staring, not moving. When she finally managed to turn on the light, he was gone. But that feeling of being watched stayed with her for days. Over in Pennsylvania, a family started seeing the Hat Man after moving into a new house. Different family members caught sight of him at different times, always in the same spot at the end of their hallway. At first it was just quick glimpses, but soon the sightings got longer and somehow he seemed to get bolder each time. Alright, let's take a step back from the spooky stuff for a minute and see what science has to say. One of the most common explanations is sleep paralysis. That's when your brain wakes up but your body can't move just yet. It's pretty common. About 8% of people experience it, and it often comes with intense, realistic hallucinations. Shadowy figures watching you from the shadows. It's a classic symptom. There's also something called pareidolia. Our brain's habit of turning random shapes or shadows into familiar things like faces or people. In the dark, it's easy to mistake a pile of clothes or the edge of a closet door for something much creepier. And apparently, even strong antihistamines can cause hallucinations, sometimes leading people to see shadowy figures. But here's the thing. If it's just hallucinations or tricks of the mind, why are the stories so consistent? Why do people across the world, with no connection to each other, describe the same entities, sometimes right down to the hat? Why do even people who've never heard of the Hat Man see him just the same? Alright, time to wander back into the weird. From a paranormal point of view, there are more than a few theories floating around. Some say shadow people are actually spirits of the dead, or maybe something a little more sinister, a kind of malevolent entity. People who believe in ghosts sometimes think shadow people are a more primitive ghost, or maybe an apparition that hasn't fully taken shape. Other folks think maybe they're not ghosts at all, but visitors from another dimension or echo of an alternate timeline. Maybe there are layers to reality, and sometimes, just for a moment, these beings poke through. That could explain why they look so different from traditional ghosts. And then there's the idea that shadow people are energy creatures, drawn to certain people or places for reasons we can't quite figure out yet. Their appearances often coincide with other strange happenings, think hauntings, poltergeist activity, or even possessions. What's really fascinating is that lots of eyewitnesses say shadow people act like they know what they're doing. They're not just flickering in and out. They watch, they follow, and sometimes they even mess with their surroundings. Paranormal investigators have tried everything to get proof. Infrared cameras, EMF meters, audio recorders, you name it. But so far, no one's caught anything definitive. The shadow people, it seems, are as elusive as ever. Let's talk about some real, documented encounters, stories that have been looked into by seasoned paranormal investigators. These aren't just urban legends, these are people who went on record. First, there is my own encounter. I had sleep paralysis twice in the last year. Both times, I woke up in my room with something dark on my chest and a hand on my throat. After a minute, I woke up and it was gone. But other than that, the details of my room were exactly the same, making me question if I wasn't awake the whole time. My take. Why would my mind create a vision of something trying to hurt me as I woke up? I admit I was under a lot of stress at the time, but still, isn't it just as possible that my stress attracted something to me that I was able to perceive because I was conscious during the transition from sleep to waking? Next, there's the Midnight Watchers, a group called out to a small town in Pennsylvania, where a family complained about a shadowy presence in their home. The family had security cameras all over, and while the cameras never caught a figure outright, they did record sudden, unexplained drops in temperature and weird electromagnetic spikes, all right when the family reported sightings. Then, there's the hospital worker in Texas who started seeing the same shadowy figure in the hospital hallways, night after night. Before long, other staff members started reporting the same thing in the same places. There was never anything on the security footage, but the reports were so consistent, even the hospital higher-ups admitted it was happening. And finally, the Mitchell family in Oregon. After they moved into a new house, they started experiencing what they called shadow harassment. Different family members would see shadow people in the same places, doorways, halls, corners. The encounters ramped up until the family finally decided to move out. What ties all these stories together is that the people involved weren't after attention. In fact, most were hesitant to share their stories at all, scared they'd be called crazy or mocked. Here's something to think about. Shadow people encounters follow a pattern. Researchers who've looked at hundreds of cases have noticed a few things. Most sightings happen between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., the so-called witching hours. Shadow people love transitional spaces. Doorways, halls, stairwells. Anywhere you move from one area to another. They almost always just watch. They're not aggressive, but their presence makes people uneasy or even terrified. Encounters usually last 30 seconds to 2 minutes. It's long enough to get a good look, but short enough to doubt what you saw. And here's the creepiest part. Once someone sees a shadow person, more sightings often follow, almost like the veil's been pulled back for good. So, what are shadow people? Are they visitors from another dimension, the spirits of the dead, or just our brains playing tricks on us? We may never know for sure. But with thousands of people all over the world reporting almost identical encounters, it's a mystery that's not going away anytime soon. My personal take is that these are not just spirits. I firmly believe these are entities from either a parallel world or even another timeline. And this dynamic could explain a lot of other phenomena as well. Cryptids, hauntings, the list goes on. Whether you lean towards science or the supernatural, one thing's for sure. There's something happening here that deserves a closer look. The stories, the global reach, the raw emotion, none of it can be brushed off easily. Maybe shadow people are a glimpse into another world. Or maybe they're the shadows of our deepest fears, coming to life in the dark. Whatever they are, they're out there and maybe closer than you think. So the next time a shape flickers at the corner of your eye, remember what you've learned tonight. You might just be seeing something science can't yet explain. And if you've got your own story, drop it in the comments. I want to hear all about it. If this spooked you, hit subscribe and ring that bell, because trust me, there's a lot more where this came from. Until next time, keep your eyes open and remember, the dark might be watching you back.